All right. Hello, hello. Are we good? Is this live now? Okay. All right. We're all good. I did give myself 1 point, but I was live just on the other stream. So I'm not giving myself any more than that. But the point total was updated from 147 to 148. I don't know how I did that. That's never happened before. I didn't even know you can go live on a previous stream. Here, let me catch up on supers real quick because probably missed some supers just now. Hold on. Okay. All right. Hold on. Uninspired says Flying Dutchman S tier. Okay, so there's a comment for the other stream. Yeah, I don't think Flying Dutchman's S tier. Marco Cadillo, thanks for the 2. Morge laid Boa upscale, Sanji upscale, so peak. Is this Boa upscale? Marco Cadillo says wrong stream. That's 4 points. No, it's not 4 points. I'm not giving myself 4 points. 4 points late is completely fair. We will riot. No, I was here. I was live. I was streaming on YouTube. I was here. I was streaming on YouTube. The stream began, just not in the right location, right? Because it's two different concepts, right? There's it's basic just basic physics, right? There's time and space, right? The stream began 1 minute late, so I gave myself 1 point. But it was just in the wrong location. Location is different than time. I don't think anybody would dispute that, right? It was streaming on a different stream than the stream that you guys happened to be in, right? That's just a location issue, right? I wasn't late by 4 minutes. I was late by 1 minute. You see what I'm saying? Time-wise, I was 1 minute behind. Location-wise, I was in the wrong location. Or you guys were in the wrong... Who's to say you guys weren't in the wrong location? I don't know. I think an argument could be made for that. You know? Time and space, two different things. You know? Two different things. Right time, wrong place. Well, also not right time. I was a minute late in general. But I wasn't 4 minutes late. Alright? New X7 says, Morge, did you give us the late point? Yes. On the other stream, you can go check that. I'll screen share it again. We were at 147 points before. We are now at 148. You can check the other stream VOD to confirm that. But don't worry. We're all good. Marco Cadillo, thanks for the 2. You using a secret stream to bail you out? 4 points. It's not a secret stream. It was a public stream. Public stream. What you doing? Oh, you want to do that? Okay. And Crust, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 24 months. Everybody go, so get your Pirate King podcast submissions in real quick. Pirate King podcast submissions are live. For those of you who don't know, my top tier of members, or patrons, Pirate King members can all submit questions that I then proceed to answer on my Pirate King podcast, which is it's for my top tier of patrons, right? So Pirate King podcast, all the questions you guys give, I answer in depth in an hour to an hour and a half long podcast. I answer the questions in much more depth than I do on stream. And in this podcast, you can ask me anything, you know, obviously about One Piece, other anime, manga, movies, TV, video games, some real life, sports, all that stuff. So get your Pirate King podcast submissions in now. I'll be recording probably over the course of the next week. So get your Pirate King podcasts in this weekend. Submissions are currently open. Fake ass Pirate King Roger on his knees begging for a Kuja pirate. Meanwhile, my true glorious Pirate King Joy Boy Luffy has the Pirate Empress begging for him. Read Kagurabachi, read Kagurabachi. I do like that Roger and Luffy are different characters, and I will read Kagurabachi soon. I've heard too many people gassing up Kagurabachi. I think I even got spoiled a little bit on some cool stuff that happened in the latest chapter. I believe that's Kagurabachi. But yeah, I think I appreciate that Roger and Luffy are fundamentally different. Um, and Roger did shoot down Gloriosa, but I just love the fact. You know what this means? This means that Roger would probably lose to Hancock. Like Hancock's ability would work on him. Yeah, I like the fact that it Roger once started out as this like myth, this untouchable sort of legend, and then the more we saw of him, the more that kind of like. Well, actually, even in the Odin flashback, the first thing Roger does is like he basically one-shots Odin. Well, Odin survives it, but his first move just sends Odin flying, and Odin had already been hyped up a lot. And then after that, Roger clashes with Whitebeard, probably the coolest Conqueror's Haki clash so far in the story. So all really dope stuff. And then I think this flashback, we're seeing him more in his youth before he became a great pirate and everything. So, yeah, I just like that. I mean, I guess even before that, we saw Roger in Chapter 0 facing off against Shiki. And again, that made Roger look really badass, like just getting ready to square off with Shiki despite being so disadvantaged. So yeah, I don't know. I love what's been done with Roger. Will look badass again at God Valley, but for the moment, this is young Roger. He's not supposed to be king of the pirates type Roger. It's just Roger on the come up, Let's get the streamlines up to 100 real quick because the chapter was so good. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. Rox really is stealing the show in this arc. Rox, you know what? Here, let's do this real quick. Rox is truly, like, genuinely from the bottom of my heart. And I don't feel like this is, maybe it's recency bias to a degree, but I feel it from the bottom of my heart. So far, Rox is, I've already got him at the top of the rankings here. Last chapter, I was worried I was doing that out of recency bias. This chapter confirmed it for me. Rox is just such a fucking cool character. Wildly charismatic, magnetic personality. Oda's just doing everything right with this character. The way he talks, his actions, his interactions, his persona, his views, all of it, like, it's very, 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 it's just very, very captivating, and it by the end of the chapter, I, as the reader, was pumped up to see Rox, like, try to execute his mission, to try and take over the world. So we already got Rox at the top of the rankings, nothing to change there, but I would say, genuinely from the bottom of my heart, I feel like I've got Rox at this point, like, I could see him becoming my favorite side character in One Piece, like my favorite non-Straw Hat character. He's just so damn cool, and I think, I don't know where I'd rank him among side characters so far, but I always say my favorite side character in One Piece is Wiper, and then after that it becomes like a bit of a mix of various characters. I don't think I like Rox better than Wiper just yet, just because we had a lot more character-focused time on Wiper. But, like, other side characters who I love, like Shanks, Mihawk, Smoker, Loki's getting up there. I think I might already have Rox above, like, it might be recency bias, though. Blackbeard, that's the thing. I'm like, do I like Rox better than Blackbeard already? That's a really hard bar, because Blackbeard is my favorite villain in One Piece. Blackbeard's been my favorite villain in One Piece. I really love Blackbeard. I don't know. That might be recency. We have more history with Blackbeard is the thing. So it's hard to compare. We have more history with Blackbeard, so many moments that actually impact the current day narrative. But Rox is just so much fun. Titanium Dragon, thanks for the 10. If Loki has the fruit and Rox was glazing Harold so much, then Loki joining any crew just shot up. Also, thank Oda for not making the world so small and showing others can have great rivalries. Yeah. I mean, the world, it's complicated because the Rox Pirates makes the world, you get a reminder of how vast and complex the One Piece pirate world is, but at the same time, you see how well connected it is because it all does sort of tie together. Like, the Rox Pirates shows us how so much of the world and the lore that we know of today, it all stems from, like, a singular era where everything else spawned out of. Loki joining any crew just shot up. I think it's complicated. With the Loki situation is complicated. We got to wait and see. I am still wondering if, like, the legendary fruit of Elbaf, things are leading me to feel more and more that it might have been the fucking Goma Goma no Mi, but the catch is, like, why did Rox believe that, sorry, the Nika fruit, right? But why did Rox seem to believe that Harold needed to be the one to eat it, because I don't look at Harold and I'm like, you would be perfect for the Nika fruit. If anything, it's kind of the opposite. I feel like Rox would be a great user of the Nika fruit. So I'm very curious as to what these fruits are. Honestly, with the two fruits, Blackbeard in the modern day really wanted to go after the Yami Yami no Mi and the Gura Gura no Mi, right? So it's like, is it possible that one of the fruits that Rox is after is those? I don't know. Diaklia, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 32 months. One Piece is political. Used to talk about it and how it reflects real life. Sad to see you haven't said anything about the ongoing genocide. It came up in recent streams when we talked about certain companies and stuff like that. But what do you like? What would you? I don't use this platform specifically to talk about it. When it first started becoming an issue, so let's be very clear. At this point in time, it is not unpopular to say that the ongoing genocide in Gaza is bad, right? That is a very popular view. It's generally swung over to that being the majority view, right? When it was first going on, that was when it was complicated, because we had a lot more holdover views that basically of like who's actually the victims in the situation, etc. You got to remember that a lot of America was brainwashed really growing up for years regarding that whole conflict. And so I'd say that when things really, really started to kick up, that was when it started to become controversial. And then it was like, okay, no, actually, this is what's happening. The Palestinians are the ones who are experiencing genocide, etc. Right? I don't feel like I understand where you're coming from right now, and that like I need to be speaking about it right now, because I did drop videos referencing and framing that conflict back at the time that it was genuinely controversial to depict what's happening is happening. I'm not gonna on this channel continue to put out videos that refer to that conflict over and over, because that's not what this channel is for, and that's not what most people are interested in. And generally speaking, like, the awareness at this point is there. It's very, very, like, it is now the popular opinion online to acknowledge that, yes, what's happening in Gaza is obviously a genocide, inhumane, all of that. So I'm not going to turn the One Piece channel, which people go to for One Piece content, into just becoming a platform exclusively to speak on that. Sorry, that's just not going to be a thing. So I don't know. Anyway, Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Young Kaido still believes in ruling through subordination, unlike Rox, who knew you can't force your way through everything. Interesting contrast. The tricky thing, though, is that... So here's what I've always said. So, like, I did a video on this, right? Kaido's takeaway is not incorrect, because there's a middle ground. Rox's crew fell apart because there was no sense of hierarchy, no sense of cohesion. So, all of Rox's members, like, when we're introduced to the Rox pirates... a little bit ago, right? A couple chapters ago. They're literally like, Rox, he's barely our leader. Like, we don't view that guy as our boss or anything like that. Fuck that guy. You look at chapter 1096, all the Rox pirates are heading to battle, and they're like, we have no loyalty to Rox. Who gives a shit? We're just going to get what we each want, etc. And then what do you know? As Kaido said, like, when things get bad for pirates, they'll betray you. Where do you think that he learned about that? From the Rox pirates, right? From what happened to his captain Rox. Everybody basically abandoned the captain when the ship was sinking, right? Whitebeard even tells Odin, like, so the Rox pirates experience was basically like, you got a bunch of like alpha pirates or whatever, a bunch of Conqueror's Haki type users all on one crew. The boss is the boss, but it's not, because the crew is so filled and so saturated with top dog type figures, there isn't that much respect there, or loyalty, or obedience. And you do, to some degree, need that in a pirate crew. Like, the Rox pirates are too chaotic. Whitebeard even explains to Odin that's like, I don't want you to join my crew, because I've seen what happens already when you've got too many Conqueror's Haki type users on the same crew. It just doesn't work, right? The Straw Hat Pirates wouldn't be able to function if Luffy couldn't command the respect of his crewmates, the respect, the loyalty, and actually be able to issue captain's orders when the time comes, right? So this was an observation that I made, and I did a whole video about it because I think it's fascinating the way that Oda set it up. Rocks pirates are one end of the extreme, where it's just like he has the strongest crew, a crew of all-stars, as it said, right? But when you got a whole crew of all-stars, it doesn't work quite the same, right? You need some of that order, some of that like respect for the captain. I'm sure all the Rocks pirates like respect Rox's strength and stuff like that, but they regularly view they also view him as an idiot, as like somebody that they don't actually view as their boss, like they're like above them and stuff like that. That's referenced in many panels and statements, right? You need that to some degree, otherwise the whole thing, it's like really, really big and really, really strong, but it's fragile. It can fall apart at the first times that you're like picking at the seams, right? So like the cracks can easily shatter the whole thing because none of them really want to be all together and underneath that guy, right? So what happened then? What we can observe in the crews of the emperors that all came out of the Rocks pirates is that they all realized, or their takeaway was to go in the far other end of the extreme. They came up on a pirate crew that was filled with really powerful characters, Conqueror's Haki users, big egos, alpha characters, etc., and the whole thing didn't work. Their takeaway, Whitebeard, it didn't matter if you're good guy, bad guy, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, their takeaway across the board was like, we can't let a pirate crew function like that. Our pirate crews are going to be more orderly, right? That's why Whitebeard, he's fine taking guys like Marco, Jozo, Vista in, but he says, Odin, you're not going to work on my crew because that sort of thing doesn't work. We can't have two conquerors in the same crew. Like, even just two conquerors is too much, right? Odin luckily turned out to be a very amiable guy and let Whitebeard be the big brother, but Whitebeard knows that too many of those guys, the whole thing falls apart. That's also why Whitebeard's crew is like more orderly, right? Like divisions, you're Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. They're all my sons, right? There's a sense of clear hierarchy. I'm the boss. They all call him Pops. They all call him all of that stuff, right? He's their general. He's the leader. They're all below him, right? Kaido, same thing. You need hierarchy, strict hierarchy. That was his takeaway. Big Mom, all of the kids are literally, like all of her subordinates are literally her children. They're all like directly subservient to her, right? The thing is, they, like, you can see where the rationale comes from for why they decided that pirate crews need to be like this, because they saw what failed in their original pirate crew. The thing is, that's too far in the other direction, right? If Rox is all the way over here, they went too far in the other direction. Because if you're trying to enforce that much hierarchy and like that much order and strictness in your crew, then you can't ultimately get the best of the best. The real middle ground that Oda's painted for us, who are the two like optimal pirate crews in One Piece? Roger pirates, Strahd pirates. Very similar functioning. You got like the captain, who is the captain, but at the same time, there's a level of camaraderie and familiarity within the crew where like they can push back, they can argue with him, they can even beat him up at times and everything like that. But at the end of the day, they still respect him, right? So it's not as rigid as the Whitebeard pirates, Big Mom pirates, Beast pirates or anything. It's not as crazy, chaotic. We're all like just like swinging our dicks around like the Rocks pirates or something. It's somewhere in the middle. And that's basically what Oda has established as the happy medium. If you go too far that way, you'll have the strongest crew, but it'll break apart. If you go far that way, like you'll have a crew that's got very orderly and always obeys you, but you're not going to have the strongest guys, right? There's barely even room for Conqueror's Haki users there. Out of Whitebeard's crew, Big Mom's crew, Kaido's crew, right? Kaido's crew didn't have any Conqueror's Haki users. Big Mom's crew has one Conqueror's Haki user, and that's Katakuri, and the only reason that she's able to have Katakuri underneath her is because Katakuri is literally her kid, right? So he was born into the crew, and he sticks around specifically to protect the younger members, right? But she wouldn't be able to recruit a Conqueror's Haki user to that type of crew. They would just never agree to that. That's rigidity of her being the boss, right? And then Whitebeard's crew, he didn't want a Conqueror's Haki user in there in the first place. He didn't want Odin. And then the only Conqueror's Haki user that he ever took in was Ace. And Ace was a big exception. And Whitebeard was right to not want somebody like Ace initially, because Ace fucking tried to kill him like 1,000 times every single day and continually challenged him to duels to the death until finally love won him over, right? So you see a big difference between the crews on this side of things where like they generally stay away from the individualistic Conqueror's Haki user types versus, you know, on the Rocks Pirates filled with Conqueror's Haki users doesn't work. and then nice happy medium. You got the Roger Pirates, Strahd Pirates, more equality, more egalitarian, still respect for the leader, but there's this wiggle room that allows like other Conqueror's Haki users, like a Rayleigh, like a Gaban, like a Zoro, like possibly a Sanji, etc., to feel comfortable in those crews without feeling like they're being like forced to kneel to their captain. They choose to support their captain, but they're not like Zoro, Sanji, those guys will fucking leave the crew. Like, they've made that clear. Like, Zoro's straight up like, if you don't act like my boss, I'm not going to treat you like my boss, right? So there's a mutual respect that has to go on there. Anyway, so I really like what you can see the psychology of why Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, everybody who came out of the Rocks Pirates constructed their crews the way that they did. And you can also see exactly why those crews can never be as good as like the Strahd Pirates or the Roger Pirates, right? Shanks, the red-haired pirates, have always said is somewhere a little bit in the middle, so it's not as far down the spectrum as the Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom group in terms of hierarchy and rigidity, but it's not as loose as like the Strahd Pirates and the Roger Pirates. Like, Shanks' crew isn't like beating him up for fun like we see happen to Luffy and Roger, you know? And I've also said that leads to a correlation in strength. It's literally like a graph. Like, Oda thought this through perfect. Like, it's literally a fucking graph, which is like, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, they ultimately, like, they've got first mate type characters, Marco, King, Katakuri, etc. Then you get to Shanks' crew, Ben Beckman. Many speculate that he's stronger than the first mates of the other crew, right? Because hierarchy is becoming a little bit less rigid, a bit more fluid. Then you get to Luffy and Roger, and obviously Zoro and Sanji, they will likely be top tier characters by the end of the story. Rayleigh, Gaban were likely top tiers in their heyday, etc., like way above the standard first mate level, right? And then you get to the Rocks Pirates, where it's just like, okay, everybody on the crew is a fucking Yonko. But that doesn't work. That's too much. You can't have, not everybody on the crew can be a Yonko, right? That doesn't work. Anyway. Nicholas Nick, thanks a lot. I'm at my master's in physics, time equals space, relativity. Nicholas Nick, unless you show me a degree, I'm not adding any extra late points. Because you say you're at your master's, but it doesn't sound like you've actually gotten your degree just yet, right? So how do we know that you've even understood the curriculum properly? Paul, thanks for the 2. I'm increasingly finding myself rooting for Rocks. Yeah, Rocks is... I'm actually pretty upset right now that we know that this whole grand mission... Because Oda sucked us in. I'm excited for this mission. I'm excited for their goals. I am disappointed that all of it's going to go down in flames because fucking Roger's going to... I'm sure I will come to love Roger again once we get to God Valley, but at this moment I'm just like... Why are you gonna get in the way of this shit, man? Marco Cadillo, thanks for the 5. Bro said he showed up to work on time, but at the wrong building. That's 4 points, and if Hadruden gets Conquerors, equals 50 points for you. Come on, Mork. I'll say if Hadruden gets Conquerors, that's... No points for Hadruden. No, because I'm confident Hadruden's not getting Conquerors Haki. So, if Hadruden gets Conquerors Haki, let's say that's... If Hadruden gets Conquerors Haki, fine. 50 points. I'm confident he's not getting it. He doesn't have Conquerors Haki. He's not a Conquerors Haki user, all right? I showed up to work on time, but at the wrong building. How do we know that you guys didn't show up at the wrong building, right? Because, like, at the end of the day, it was so like, the way things worked out, it was so fluid. Like, I'm over here and you guys are here. But, like... It's like the building signs got swapped and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's complicated. It's so nebulous. We don't know who was in the wrong location because there's an argument that you guys were in the wrong location. You know what I mean? Like, was I in the wrong spot or were you guys in the wrong spot? We just don't know. We don't know. And we have no time machine, so we can't go back to figure it out. Jaren's Rambo, thanks for the 5. Do you agree that Dressrosa reading it weekly has piss poor pacing? Any arcs you think work best when you can binge it versus reading it week by week? I think Dressrosa is... Because I read Dressrosa weekly. Dressrosa was very difficult to get through weekly, especially once it got to the section of the story that was climbing the... Like, post-Birdcage till the final fights began was damn slow pacing. And I think one of the things that really didn't help is that the fights that we were getting in Dressrosa, like, because usually One Piece, it took a lot of setup to get everything, all the dominoes in line. Like, Oda likes concluding arcs with, like, he gets all the dominoes in line, and then it's like, okay, now you get a fight, you get a fight, you get a fight, you get a fight. And then we're at the big finale where usually there's a doomsday device going on and Luffy's having his final battle during that, right? That's his typical finale structure. Dressrosa was a little bit different just because it really stretched the limits of that, because Oda set up, he had to get so many dominoes in place and there was so much moving shit around that, it's so much moving shit around, like so many diagrams, etc. And then I'd say the last problem is that even once he got a lot of the dominoes in place, not all of the fights were exciting, because we're generally going to be more invested in Straw Hat fights, right? So people are looking forward to, like, Zoro's fight, and people really love, like, the Usopp sniping chapter, and people obviously love seeing Luffy and Law versus Doflamingo. But, like, we got to the part where everything's lined up, and now it's like the fights are beginning, and it's like, okay, now's the big finale, and the first event is, like, Leo versus fucking Jorah or whatever, or, like, whoever the fuck Leo fought. And then it's like Hadruden versus Makvis. You know, like, not all of the fights were captivating. Even like Heroes versus Diamante, that was like a battle against a seat. I don't think people were like itching to see Heroes versus Diamante. If anything, some of the fights that people wanted to see a lot more of, like Sabo versus Fujitora, even like some more of Sabo versus Burgess, those would get like a few panels, you know? So it was a mixed bag where, like, I think the early parts of Dressrosa were good. But Dressrosa was also the first One Piece arc where, I think it's the first One Piece arc where Oda was trying to do that much with that many characters split up right off the bat. We saw traces of it in Punk Hazard. Dressrosa, like, exacerbated it. So, like, you've got just so many different storylines going on. Generally, arcs are going to they're going to feel more smoothly paced when you have just fewer storylines to focus on, because that's just the definition of pacing. Like, if you have fewer storylines to focus on, then every chapter you're progressing further in each of the key storylines, right? Like, you go to Water 7, and, like, it's basically all that's happening is some of the Strats are heading into the city, and then Robin kind of disappears, right? That's all that's happening. And then Robin disappears, but then after that, we mainly focus on the gold situation being stolen, Strats with the falling out with Usopp, Luffy versus Usopp. Usopp situation resolves, then we're back to focusing on the Robin situation, but it's really just like, those are the two storylines throughout all of Water 7, right? So the story progresses. Dressrosa, you've got Luffy's at the Coliseum, Zoro's off chasing Tontadas, Robin, Usopp, Law are off at Greenbit doing a trade, but then that splinters further into Robin and Usopp doing a new mission with the Tontadas, and then, like, Frankie's doing something with the Toy Soldier, and now Law's got his own situation going on with Doflamingo and Fujitora, and then you got the Strats back at the ship doing stuff, and then Sanji's got his storyline going with Viola, and then amidst all this, we're establishing stuff about, like, Coliseum fighters and Rebecca's and Riku's storylines and everything like that. There's just so much branching shit going on right off the bat. So Dressrosa always felt slow paced, but it at least felt exciting in the early parts. Then once you hit, like, the birdcage section and scaling the plateau, it's just so much setup, and he's got 10 different storylines, and it felt like each chapter he would move each storyline forward like 1 inch. Or it would be a chapter where, like, one storyline gets moved forward like a foot, but maybe it's not the most interesting storyline, and we're like, well, we kind of wanted to see more of, like, Sabo versus Fujitora, or, like, we kind of want to see Luffy get closer to fighting Doflamingo or something, you know? Any arcs I think work best when you can binge it versus reading weekly. I think Dressrosa is a lot better binged. I found that the first half is way stronger binged, but I still find that that entire, like, 2/3 section of it, right? Like, I'd say between the halfway point to the 75% point. Let's say maybe that's a bit more accurate. Halfway point to the 80% point, right? I'd say that section, it is still slow to read, binged. I think some of the stronger arcs to read binged. I think Skypiea is a lot stronger to read binged. I think Fishman Island is a lot stronger to read binged. Because Fishman Island's problem isn't too many plots. Its main problem, I think, is that like the storyline is not inherently exciting. It feels low stakes, but also takes a long time. There's a difference between a story taking a long time and a story being slow paced. I don't think Fishman Island's that slow paced, but it just takes a long time. I enjoyed reading Punk Hazard weekly. But people apparently, like, I found out later on, because I started being more active in, like, One Piece online forums and stuff like that and Reddit after Punk Hazard. So I found out later on that people really didn't like Punk Hazard Weekly. But I love Punk Hazard Weekly because that was the first arc that felt like, okay, we're getting prep for New World shit, you know? Like, I didn't find Caesar and that stuff that exciting, but I thought Virgo was a cool character. I was really excited to see Doflamingo, all the stuff with the Underworld Brokers, finding out that we're going to be on a mission to go take down a Yonko. Smoker versus Law is, to date, one of my favorite fights between side characters in One Piece. Smoker versus Law is a really cool fight. Genuine. Like, it's one of the few times that we really get an extended battle where it's mainly two cool Devil Fruit users and seeing how their abilities interact before things turned into more so, like, hockey matters more than anything. Like, seriously, if you go back and read Smoker vs. Law, it's a really, really cool... I think that is actually, low-key, one of the coolest showdowns of just pure Devil Fruit abilities in the story. Obviously, hockey is involved, but it's not the main... Like, hockey's just an aspect of it. But it's just really fascinating seeing how Law's Fruit versus Smoker's, like, Logia skills play out. And if I were to want to... Like, genuinely, if I were to showcase to somebody, like, how cool Devil Fruit fights could be, I might play them the anime of Law versus Smoker. Because otherwise, like, a lot of Devil Fruit battles end up playing out, like, just clashing and stuff like that. Nowadays, I'd probably play something like Luffy versus Kizaru if I wanted to show the creativity of Devil Fruit battles. But I'm talking back in the day. Like, I would probably show something like that. Yeah, I like Punk Hazard. I think Whole Cake is really good weekly, or really good binged. I think the finale still feels a little slow binged. Yeah. Francisco Mas, thanks for being a Pirate King team member for 34 months. And for those of you who don't know, the Pirate King podcast is now live for submissions. So Pirate King podcast is the podcast that I do for all Pirate King members. It is an hour to hour and a half long podcast where you guys can submit. All questions that are submitted are answered very, very in depth. You can submit questions to me about One Piece, other anime, manga, movies, TV shows, real life, NBA, yada, yada, yada. You can submit it all there. I answered it all very in-depth in the podcast, so yeah, go check that out if you want to. It's for Pirate King members and above, so consider that if you want to check out the podcast. The thing about Rocks is that he is much more sympathetic than Blackbeard. You actually want to root for the guy. He's like a protagonist, not a villain. I love that he defended Harold. Blackbeard would never do that. Yes, I think that's one of the biggest things. That Rocks saying don't talk shit about, like, don't even think about going after my friend Harold. That, like, sealed the deal for me really loving the character. I was just like, he really likes Harold. Like, you could tell how much Rocks liked Harold as a friend. Like, I think Rocks... It's one of those funny things where I think Rocks considers Harold his best friend. And Harold's just like, you're not even, like, my friend. Like, you're like that kid that mom says I'm not supposed to hang out with. But Rocks is like, Harold, my fucking best friend. That one time that we clashed at the Reverie. Good times, right? Like, I just loved when Rocks and Harold had their interactions, both at the Reverie, but really at, when Rocks went to visit him at Elbaf and everything. And it's like, Rocks literally, like, beat the shit out of Harold's kid, then told Loki, like, don't you fucking tell your dad about it. Don't you tell your dad I do this to you. And then went up and was like, Harold, what's going on, man? My best friend. I think Rocks, like, in his mind, he's like, Harold and I, like, we should be walking around wearing, like, friendship bracelets. And Harold's like, I don't know if I should even, like, associate with this person. Like, when Rocks is telling him about his plans to, like, destroy the world government and stuff, Harold's like, I don't know about this. This doesn't sound good. I'm out here, like, trying to build peace between nations and stuff, and you're out here trying to bring the downfall of, like, modern civilization. Anyway, Rocks is, like, genuinely honorable and loyal to the people that he cares about. That's one thing that Blackbeard would never do, right? That right there's a big distinction between Blackbeard and Rocks, because as we know, Blackbeard will fucking backstab, like, Thatch, his own father, Whitebeard or whatever, if it furthers his goals. So Blackbeard doesn't have that level of loyalty. That's a big, big, big difference. The thing is that is one of the things that makes Rocks easier to root for. We still haven't gotten down to the nitty-gritty of Rocks' like character, his morality, his true goals. We know that he wants to be king of the world, which is inherently a selfish goal, right? So we know that that's there. We know that he does have cruelty to him in that he beat the shit out of a literal child when he first met him, right? I think the tricky thing is that if we'd only seen, like, let's say we'd only seen glimpses of Blackbeard, you would find, like, the best glimpses of Blackbeard, you would find Blackbeard an easy character to root for. Like, Blackbeard's openings, everything about Blackbeard and Jaya makes him a very captivating, charismatic, cool, likable character. Like, his scene with Luffy and the cherry pies is fun. The speech about a man's dream never ends. He and the squad rolling out of Jaya. Like, there's a lot of cool aspects to the character. It's once you get to the truth of the things that he's been doing, like, oh, he killed his crewmate and stole his devil fruit, right? He's going to take down Ace, his former commander, and turn him into the world government just to further his own goals. Once you get down to the truth of the things that Blackbeard's doing, that's when you're like, this is not a good guy, I don't like this guy. But it's, if you just pick out the cool scenes of Blackbeard, like Blackbeard and Luffy facing off in Impel Down, like the speech that he gives with Hanya Ball, Blackbeard's conversation with Luffy. Blackbeard outright tells Luffy, it's like everybody in the story up till that point has been telling Luffy, you like, stop trying to save your brother, you're not going to be able to save your brother, just give up on saving Ace, you can't save Ace, right? The first person, this is so cool, the first person in the story to tell Luffy, after like 50 chapters of being told, no, you can't do it, the first person to tell Luffy that you could save Ace, I believe you could save Ace, I think you can do it, is Blackbeard. Like, Blackbeard's the first motivational, encouraging voice that Luffy hears in the entire fucking Marineford storyline. Isn't that fucking sick? It's the same way as it parallels the same scenario in Jaya, where, you know, Luffy's being like beaten up, laughed at in the bar, told like, you want to be like, go to Sky Island, One Piece, etc., what an idiot, made fun of, etc. Everybody else tells him no. The first person to tell him, yes, I believe you can do it, believe in your dreams, is Blackbeard sitting outside in the bar, right? Same situation paralleled in Impel Down, the Marineford saga, where like everybody's telling Luffy you can't do it, give up, yada yada. First person to tell Luffy, like, no, I believe you can do it, man. You could do it. No, nothing's impossible. You could do this. Luffy can't, turns out. But Blackbeard tells him that, right? Like, Blackbeard, if you're just clipping out all of his best parts and just showing the best parts of him to the viewer, he's an immensely likable character. It's just all of the grimy shit that he does at the same time that flips that on his head, and that's what makes him such a great villain. So with Rocks, I don't know yet. I don't think we've seen enough of Rocks yet to truly say, is he... I think he does have a more honorable and loyal side to him than Blackbeard. That's what that Herald line established. But we don't know yet enough about him to really say that he's like that much morally better than Blackbeard. He's morally better than Blackbeard from what we've seen, but we don't know, we really don't know his full moral compass just yet, right? We don't know yet if like this, what we see is what we get, or if Oda's waiting to show us like the darkness underneath or something. Does that make sense? Let's get the stream lights up to 150 real quick because we're almost there. Cody Abbott, thanks for the 5. Morge, do you still think Usopp will still get his big Elbaf arc, or is that ship sailed, and has it sailed from period? No, Usopp's going to get his stuff. I'm very confident Usopp's going to get his stuff. The simple reason is that Elbaf and this whole storyline at this point, it is so fucking insanely well planned. Like, the way this arc is coming together and the way so much lore is coming together with this backstory, Oda had this shit in mind so fucking far. Like, everything is weaving together. He had it all planned out. It is fucking insane, the things that are lining up here. I elaborated on it a lot more in this Tuesday's video, but just, this is the section of the story where I'm confident we're going to have the least amount of loose ends, because this is the section where, like, everything Oda's been setting up in the past seems to be converging. So Usopp is going to get his shit. I'm very confident. Justin Holland, always good to see you, man. Thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 33 months. Thanks for the long-time support. Make sure to get your submission in on the Pirate King podcast, man. Emperors of the Sea is becoming sort of an obsolete title as the war draws near. Maybe a sign of the new era that will emerge afterwards. There might be more than one flashback thanks to the Elbaf arc. Yeah, we might be getting a couple flashbacks. And I mean, the current flashback we're getting feels like 3 flashbacks rolled into one. We're getting Roger shit too at this point, like Harold, Rox, Loki, obviously, Roger, a bit of Garp and stuff like that. Maybe, I don't know if we're going to get another flashback after all of this, because Oda might just let the Elbaf arc play out. You know the fucking crazy thing? When this flashback started, I wasn't the most excited, and I was kind of like, okay, hopefully it's a short flashback, because I thought it would just be like a flashback about Harold and Loki, which I assumed would be like a really good character flashback, like good for character writing and everything. But Oda had set us up for this big final battle upstairs to happen, right? Like everybody's going to go upstairs, going to fight Emu and the Gods Knights and this giant army of demons and everything like that. So, and we want to see Loki fight, right? We want to see Sanji of Conqueror's Haki. There's so many things that we want to see. And then Oda's stopping and it's like, oh, it's flashback time. I always love Oda's flashbacks, but sometimes it's at a point in the story where I'm like, I don't know if I want this right now. And then we get into it, I'm like, I'm so happy we're getting this right now. It's the same way I felt during Kuma's flashback, where it was like, we're at such a cool point. Like, they're going to fight Saturn, and back when Saturn still seemed like a big deal. Luffy versus Kizaru and stuff is just going on. Like, there's so many fights that seem like they're about to happen, and then it's like, okay, we start a flashback. And then it turns out the flashback's, like, the best part of the arc. Anyway, as for the Emperors of the Sea title, now I hope this flashback, by the way, I don't want to cut back to the current story. I hope Oda, like, takes this home. I hope he just keeps going. Take us all the way to God Valley, maybe. I don't know if that's too much to ask for. Wait, let me give you guys a poll. Are we getting God Valley in this flashback? Yes. Let's get the stream lights up to 200 real quick. Let's get the stream lights up to 200. Yeah, Emperors of the Sea, so I think what we're realizing now is that Emperors of the Sea is not that important of a title in the grand scheme of things, right? From what I'm seeing, to me, it just seems like portrayal-wise, the old gen just mattered way more. And there's just like that level, right? Like Prime Roger, the level of like Rox, Harold. I think Harold just went even further up in my estimation now. Like if I were to do my top 30 all-time ranking again, certain characters are going up. Harold's going up. Shiki's going up because if you notice over the course of this flashback, Oda's been giving Shiki a sort of an elevated role in terms of the Rocks Pirates and everything. And if you go back and look, I went back to reread Chapter 0, and it's like, I think we all really fucking underestimated Shiki, because we're like, I think the simple takeaway was like, well, Shiki never became a Yonko, so I think that just put him down a spot. But now, recontextualizing everything, it's like, the Rocks Pirates, like, in their prime, like, that was always a way bigger deal than the Yonko, right? And that was, like, a whole way more competitive era. The Yonko of today are just, like, the best Rocks Pirates who happen to still be alive today, basically, if that makes sense. But back then, it was just the whole era, the whole level of everything was very different. So, yeah, that's literally just all Yonko are. If you go back and reread Chapter 0, based on everything that Shiki accomplished, biggest crew, like, he made the biggest fleet and empire post-Rocks, like, on the seas. The only reason he didn't survive to become a Yonko today is because he, like, fucking committed career suicide by charging into Marineford by himself because he was so pissed off at Roger. Like, he charged Marineford by himself and fought Prime Garp and Prime Sengoku 2v1 and lost. Because every character in One Piece history loses that 2v1. That's the only reason. Otherwise, Shiki would have been a fucking Yonko to start the Great Pirate Era. He had the strongest fleet in the ocean. Like, that was established in Chapter 0. He probably had Yonko-level strength in his prime. Because he seems to be portrayed as, like, it seems like Rox is number 1 on the crew, Whitebeard's number 2. It seems like Shiki's number 3. It seems like Shiki is the Sanji equivalent of the crew. I think everybody just, like, because we read Chapter 0, but we didn't have enough context about Shiki, so I think everybody kind of, like, downplayed what happened. So it's like, okay, well, he didn't defeat Rox, but it's established that it's established that he would have defeated Roger. Sorry, Roger, right? It's established he would have defeated Roger if Roger wasn't saved by a storm. Obviously, Shiki had the bigger fleet, but that's part of what goes into being a Yonko, right? Like, keep in mind, this was at a time that the Roger pirates were dead even with the Whitebeard pirates. But Shiki's fleet was stronger than either of them, right? So Shiki, Golden Line, right? Definitely big name from that era. Seemingly the number 3 from the Rocks pirates. Ahead of the curve compared to Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom when it came to, like, actually building an empire. He had it all. He would have been the top dog on the ocean after Roger. But he was just so fucking pissed. He literally threw it all away. He was just like, I'm going to go straight to Marine... Like, nobody's doing that. Nobody's going straight to Marine Ford and being like, let me fight the 2 best admirals. 1v2. Yeah, anybody's fucking... Your career's over at that point then, man. Nobody's doing that. Yeah, so in general, it's just like... It seems like the Rocks pirates across the board... It makes the title of Yonko just seem less important. Because it's just like, well, they were all once on the same crew. Like, that's fine. I think we're getting more context and everything. It's making the world of One Piece feel more epic. It's like, there was something that was once way bigger than the Yonko, right? What we're seeing today, like the big emperors of the sea, they're just the pieces of something way more important and way, 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 way stronger that once existed back in the day. Fading Phase, thanks for the 2. Do you think Rox told his crew about Emu? I don't know. He might have. I wonder if do all those pirates know about Emu? That'd be kind of crazy. That's a good question. Shiki might be Rox's number 1. No, from portrayal so far, it seems like Whitebeard is Rox's number 1 because Whitebeard is kind of like... You just go... I'm just basing it off of, like, how often the two seem to be portrayed together or whatever. It seems like Whitebeard is Whitebeard is Rox's, like, right hand in a sense, if the crew can be said to have a right hand. But Shiki seems like, in terms of portrayal, he's basically being shown to be the number 3. I would have to go through, like, all of the past... I've been going back through, right? But I would have to pull up for you guys. Maybe I'll do that at some point. All of the past examples of, like, the glimpses we've seen of the Rocks crew dynamic. So going back to chapter 1096, going back to the first little flashback we had of the Rocks pirates a little bit earlier in Elbaf. The panels we've been getting recently, a lot of little things. Tao, thanks for the 5. Silverax is an undercover Marine and grandfather of X-Drake and is the reason God Valley went south. Oh, shit. That would be insane. If you're right about that, that is a phenomenal call. Cody Abbott, welcome to Pirate King tier. So just head on over and just get your submission in for the Pirate King podcast. And yeah, I'll be answering that very soon. And you get access to all the previous Pirate King podcasts if you want to check those out. Meek, thanks for the 5. This isn't the main focus of the chapter, but man, Ida is such a great mother for both Loki and Hadruden. Honestly, I lost empathy for Loki. Loki's been through a lot, man. He was suicidal as a kid. And I feel like we haven't yet gotten... To me, it's similar to kind of the Odin backstory, where we start off with a Odin focus, then it shifts into more like other pirate, like the main pirates of the era focus, so like Roger Whitebeard, and then by the end, it'll circle back around to Odin. So you gotta let it get back to the main character of the flashback. So right now, it's like, we started the flashback with obviously Harold, technically, but then we started to get learning about Loki. Then that shifted into the whole Rocks Pirates situation, and now we're very fixated on that. We need to get back to Loki, right? And part of this is just the weekly reading experience, especially with breaks. Like, you forget how sympathetic and, like, how everybody's heart was, like, breaking for Loki just, like, a chapter or 2 ago. But, you know, like, now we're fixated on other shit, right? It's almost at this point, like, anytime Loki shows up on page, I'm like, get this kid off my page, right? I'm here to read about Rocks and Roger. I want to read more about Loki. I love the character. I want to read more about him after we're done with the Rock shit. At this moment in time, get him off my page, okay? Like, I don't need to be... I get that the kid is sad, and he's an angsty teenager and all that shit, you know? But I'm sure that when it comes down to it, Oda's gonna, like, we know the way that things are gonna play out, right? So Ida likely dies. We know that Loki seemingly has to kill his own father, Harold. Like, we know that everything's gonna play out in a very dramatic sort of conclusion, like a very heartbreaking conclusion for Loki, right? So we know that shit's coming. We will feel like the tears and tragedy for that character when it comes down to it. Now's just not the time for my heart to be moved, though. I want hype and epic shit. Let's get the stream lights up to 200. JP, thanks for the 10. If Gloriosa is Yamato's mom theory is true, shout out to the guy who had a detailed theory on it like 3 years ago before all for Roger/Rock's connections were known. Gloriosa is Yamato's mom? Is she, like, even interested? Like, isn't Kaido, like, a kid compared to her? I mean, I guess that doesn't matter. Like, Hancock loves Luffy. But I guess that would make sense. Because, like, I guess that would make sense. I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's a thing. Okay, let me start catching up a little faster. Sorry, sometimes I just get too fixated on certain comments. Okay, hold on. Rihanna Zara, thanks for the 5. Always ashamed to get one of these chapters that's fun in the volumes, but a slog to read weekly right after and right before a break week. Oh, I didn't think that this was a slog to read weekly. I loved this chapter. This chapter, like, to me, this chapter gets me really excited. Kid Smitty 94, thanks for the 5. Do you think Loki ate Elbaf's legendary fruit after finding out Rox wanted to use it so he could join, or is that too obvious for One Piece? Oh, that is an interesting question. Shit. That would be like a little bratty thing of Loki to do. That would be hilarious. I never considered that. But then would that mean that Elbaf has like 2 legendary fruits? Like both of them are at Elbaf? Because like when Harold died, that was way after Rox's shit, right? So you're saying like Loki ate the fruit, but then there was another fruit that was also held at Elbaf. That's complicated. Okay, so a lot of people think, like 50% of people think we could legitimately get God Valley here. I feel like for narrative purposes, I feel like it's almost important, just for narrative momentum, it's almost important to get God Valley here, because it's like, we're on this train where we're really fixated on Rox and everything like that, and like his story is going to be going forward with full momentum, and like it's building and building to this big climax, and it would feel weird to me if like we cut away before we get to the climactic event. We have a time skip, and then we're just told, yeah, the Rox pirates failed, and Rox died or whatever, and then we just cut back to Harold and Loki and how their situation played out. I don't know. But, you know, Oda doesn't like giving us everything all in one go. You know, it's kind of like, to me, it would be kind of like if we were in Odin's flashback and we're like following the story of Roger trying to get to One Piece, trying to get to Laugh Tale, right? And we're following that, and then like at some point we just cut away, and it skips the part where they go to Laugh Tale and everything, and then we skip to when Odin's been dropped off at Wano. I don't know. Maybe it's not the same thing. I don't know. Maybe Oda can find a different climax point for Rox's backstory and then do a time skip. I don't know. Vice says, thanks for the 10. Why do you think Silver Axe had his own intro instead of having him in a group like in God Valley and Elbaf? It seems like Oda's purposefully highlighting him in comparison to the rest of the crew. Yeah, I would love notably, I think we get kind of a quick hierarchy of like the strongest pirates of Rox's crew back in chapter 957. So if you go to 957, Sengoku's basically explaining who are the big names from Rox's crew, right? And he explains, obviously, the Emperors. So he's like, you guys know the Emperors today. Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, all came from Rox's crew. But then on top of that, you have... Wait, I got to make a little note for myself. I forgot something. Hold on. Shit. Just forgot something big. Yeah, on top of that, you got that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. You got Sengoku hyping up Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, right? And then after that, the next names that he names are, because everybody knows those as the modern day emperors, right? So those are what the Marines will recognize first and foremost. And then Sengoku goes on to talk about 3 other pirates: Golden Lion Shiki, Silver Axe, and then Wang Ji, right? Those are the 3 that he goes through afterwards. And that makes sense, because those are the 3 next most legendary pirates, if you think about it. Because Golden Lion Shiki, I already talked about, he became he built the largest empire after Rocks, right? And he essentially Shiki would have been the first emperor. Like, he would have been the first Yonko, just because he was ahead of the game in terms of, like, empire building. He just, again, threw it all away, tried to fight Prime Garp and Sengoku by himself, because he was so upset about Roger going down, right? So Golden Lion Shiki, likely the number 3 of the Rocks pirates based on portrayal. We obviously know his legend, right? He nearly defeated the Roger pirates. Roger got saved by a lucky storm, yada yada. Makes sense. So he's obviously mentioned. And then you got Wang Zi, who was the admiral of Pirate Island for decades, which is kind of crazy to think about, because that essentially means that you got Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, Shanks, they ruled the New World. But this whole time, like, a very important part of the New World, literally Pirate Island, right, is that base is held by fucking Wang Ji, right? Like, he's able to maintain control of that. And it's established multiple times over that in the New World, pretty much all territories are split up and belong to the Yonko. Like, they're under Yonko realms, right? Obviously, there's some kingdoms that still exist that are independent, because those are like world government-run kingdoms, like Dressrosa, Fishman Island, etc. But a pirate territory that's held by pirates, that's not a thing in the New World, except for fucking Wang Ji. I don't know if I'm saying his name right or whatever. So the fact, and the territory that he held was like arguably the most coveted pirate territory, which is Pirate Island, right? So the fact that Wang Ji was able to hold that in the same era as the Yonko essentially means that Wang Ji was the 5th strongest, the 5th highest ranking pirate in the New World for the last couple decades. Right, like, obviously not quite big enough that he was a Yonko himself, but he is to date the only pirate that we know of over the last couple decades that's been able to hold their own pirate territory in an ocean that's like the New World that's pieced up amongst the Yonko, right? So that's a big deal. That essentially makes Wang Ji like a distant second 5th emperor. And it's notable that it took Blackbeard, Kobe, Law, like a huge alliance, like, to take Wang Ji down. And this was Blackbeard when he's on his own rise to sort of become an emperor, right? So it gives you an idea that basically, like, so as I was saying, like, so Sengoku in 957, he's talking about Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom. He talks about Shiki, the other character that was probably Yonko level but just went down early, and then Wang Ji, who's probably the closest to Yonko level in the modern day but wasn't quite there. And then Silver Axe, right? Those are all of the pirates that he names in 957. Which suggests that Silver Axe is a really big deal, because Sengoku is naming, like, the strongest of the strong among the Rocks pirates. So, like, all Yonko tier characters or, like, near Yonko tier characters. So, I'm curious to see if Silver Axe has, like, a very elevated role in the story, but I think also it's just the simple fact that Silver Axe is meant to be a very noteworthy, strong character in the story. Like, he's, like, the fact that he's a rival to Shiki means that he is close to Yonko level. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. If there's an evil Shanks theory, there should be an evil Roger theory too. Maybe Roger was jealous of Rocks and ambushed him at God Valley. The thing is that I just don't think that fits anything that we've been shown of Roger or told of Roger or anything like that. Like, we've already seen Roger. So we had a full backstory where we got to get to know Roger a little bit, you know? He is a good guy. Yeah, he's a good guy. And I don't think the evil Shanks theory holds up. Like, there is an evil Shanks, but it's a different character named Shamrock, you know? Ninja Stewart 115, thanks for the 5. Do you think we will get the rest of the God Valley incident in this flashback? I would love to, and I think that there is at this point little to no narrative reason not to, because for a long time I thought that Oda's gonna hold off on it because he didn't think it's time yet for us to show like the Rocks pirates and all of that stuff. But he's done that part, right? Like I thought Oda was holding off on showing Rocks himself, but we're at that part. Oda's showing us Rocks. He's showing us all the juicy stuff. We're probably going to learn about, like, what are the legendary devil fruits? What are, like, a lot of the secrets of the world and everything like that? We're going to learn a lot of that shit. So it's just like, why not also show us how it went down at God Valley, you know? Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. I really like this color spread. It seems like a perfect depiction of the power/leadership dynamics in the Strahd crew in comparison to Rogers. I'm trying not to like read that. Like, obviously people are making a big deal that like Nami's in there too and everything like that. But yeah, like it's just cool. Like, we know who the two wings are. Rayleigh Gaban, and we know that Luffy has his equivalent to wings, Zoro Sanji. I think it's silly that people even argued like for a while that the wings thing isn't real or whatever. It's Monster Trio deniers are like the most dishonest, disingenuous readers in the world, right? They always have some sort of agenda. You have to be fucking wait, let me take a look at this. Is the fucking fish in the thumbnail? Is he in the thumbnail? Is the fish in the thumbnail? I don't think so. Not the thumbnail. I don't know. I think of things in YouTube terms. At this point, it's disgusting. The fish is in there, but he's tiny as fuck. It does my heart good to see the fish as a little miniature little character. Ninja Stewart 115. Do you think we'll? Oh no, we covered this. Christian Barraza, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 26 months. It's interesting that Rox's / Elbaf giant obsession influenced Big Mom and Kaido. Big Mom with Loki and Lola, and Kaido with the Punk Hazard ancient giant numbers. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I think they both just recognize the value of the giant's strength, especially as soldiers and everything. Rihanna Zara, thanks to the 5. How can anyone think it's so sick to have Blackbeard telling Luffy he can save Ace and not want to have him be the final villain? Their relationship is sick. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I want Blackbeard to be the final villain, but I would not be surprised if he ends up being the penultimate villain if Oda chooses to have Luffy defeat Emu as the final villain. The way I broke it down in the video that I did recently on Blackbeard versus Emu, the possibilities, Blackbeard versus Luffy is the more personal, character-based, like character in terms of personal protagonist-antagonist relationship and character conflict. That's the most powerful one. Luffy defeating Emu and like overthrowing God, that's the most symbolically powerful. It's separate, right? Like, Luffy defeating Blackbeard is more powerful for what it represents for Luffy himself and for Blackbeard himself, like the protagonist-antagonist relationship. Luffy defeating Emu, overthrowing God, ending like the 800 years of world government rule, freeing the world from the evil God, etc., ending the darkness, liberating, etc. That fits more like Luffy is a symbol of freedom, like the thematic ideas of the story, the idea of liberation. So there's two separate arguments. I think there's two separate arguments. The one thing I don't think will happen is like Luffy defeats Emu and then Blackbeard. I think either Blackbeard is the final villain, and that means Luffy is not the one to defeat Emu. Somebody else defeats Emu, maybe Dragon, maybe an alliance, maybe Blackbeard himself, and then Luffy defeats Blackbeard. Or Luffy defeats Blackbeard and then Emu. That's my thought process. I think the way the rest of the Elbaf arc plays out will tell me a lot, because if this Luffy-Emu conflict gets very in-depth, the one that's happening in Elbaf right now, then I think it's very possible that we don't get Luffy versus Emu in the end of the story. Oda might have checked off that box here in Elbaf, so let's wait and see. NewX7, thanks for the 10. Can we talk about how Ida is so great? Offering to adopt Loki after he badmouthed her, and loves him like a son. Some early reviews are out for Weapons, all good. It has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and 9 out of 10 on IGN. I don't give a shit about IGN. But yeah, I'm excited to watch Weapons. I'm going to try and watch that soon for sure. And yeah, the cool thing about the Loki-Ida situation is that we know that their storylines are going to be meaningful for each other at the end of the day, because Loki's whole thing is that he wants to destroy the world, and Ida's important quote that she said during Harold's flashback is that nothing in this world is meant to be destroyed. So her views, her way of living, I think, is going to be impactful in a way but at the end of all this. And I think it's going to lead to change for Loki. Maybe not during the flashback itself, but I think that he's going to remember her as an important figure, even if he doesn't realize it while she's alive. Talha, thanks for bringing Yonko to your member for 17 months. Rox, Harold, Gaban, Imunko, Loki, Shanks, Robin, Frankie doing lore stuff. Zoro Sanji conquers hockey plot lines. Just a reminder, this is Usopp's arc. I think that Usopp is definitely going to get something really major this arc. I think that just whatever it is can only take place from the final battle onwards. Paul, thanks for the 5. From a narrative perspective, is it normal that we know more about Rox than Kaido? In hindsight, Kaido's turning out to be a forgettable villain. I have often believed that, I've often said that I think that Kaido is just a really poorly executed villain. Every argument I've seen for why Kaido is a good villain basically explains why he is a good villain as a concept rather than a good villain in terms of how he is actually how his story is actually played out in the story in One Piece itself, right? Rather in terms of if you want to get into if you connect these dots and speculate about him or even theoretically put together a lot of things that seem to make sense and the idea behind Kaido, right? Arguing that the idea behind a villain is really really well thought out is not the same as the villain actually being well executed on paper, because that's the difference between outline and the bullet points that you have in your draft versus how you actually write them into the story and the storyline that you actually give them in the narrative itself that's presented to the reader. So I think that Oda probably had great ideas for Kaido in his outline and draft. I don't think he translated well over to the story. T, thanks for the 10. Morge, I'm sorry I can't fuck with you anymore. Jay said it was his win in the agenda, LMAO. That short was wild, but his card declining on a donation was legendary. What's your favorite travel poster? Cheers. You're interested in travel posters? Well, let me show you. Let me show you. If you're looking to get yourself some nice, beautiful island posters, you're in luck. You're in luck, my friend. You are in luck. And the short that is being referred to is really fucking funny. I think you can find it on his channel. His card declines when I'm watching his stream. Anyway, here we go. So, so first of all, we have new versions of a lot of the best islands in One Piece, a lot of our best sellers. So we've got Water 7, Enies Lobby, Alabasta, Skypiea, Marineford. I think my favorite travel poster, it's tricky because I think Water 7 at night might be my new favorite travel poster. Other contenders for me are, there's so many I love, because I love Reverse Mountain, I love Alabasta, I fucking love Skypiea. Enies Lobby is really fucking good. I think I might go with Water 7 at night. Punk Hazard I love. I really like Fishman Island. I like Witheria a lot. Witheria is something that I would love, even if I knew a lot of these I would love even if I knew nothing about One Piece, but Witheria particularly is pretty psychedelic. God Valley's great. Elbaf Night is really strong. There's a lot of good contenders here. I might go with Water 7 Night. I think Water 7 at night is my favorite. Water 7 at night is maybe my favorite. I think Enies Lobby is also up there. But yeah, I think this is my favorite at the moment. It's just really beautiful. I love the stars, the color gradation, the sea train traveling. There's just something really magical about that one. You guys can get these posters for yourselves by hitting the link. Now, continuing on. Not really an ostrich. Thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 5 months. Make sure to get your Pirate King submissions in. The podcast submissions are open. Anything you want to ask me about One Piece, anime, manga, real life, movies, video games, whatever, just get your submissions in. The submissions are open right now. Reading this flashback has been so much fun. Oda's just giving us everything when normally he'd be cutting away. It really reminds me that we're in the end game here. Kind of bittersweet. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, at this point, there's nothing that's going to be held back. I think the one thing that we could always ask for is, instead of clashes, full fights. but there's so many interactions Oda wants to show that I think clashes are the main thing that we're going to get. I think we're only ever going to get full fights when it's like in the modern day narrative and Oda is set up like a battle that he explicitly wants to play out. Cody Abbott, thanks for the 2. Never got Shiki being slept on statements were wild. Yeah, I think Shiki, I mean, I slept on Shiki for a long time too. If I were to revisit the top 30, I'm shooting Shiki way up there. Because just from like literally everything, I think now that we understand more so the context of the era and like how important that era was, it's just like, yeah, like you just go back, even when Sengoku's talking about the Rocks Pirates back in 957, the ones that he's framing first and foremost are like Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shiki. Like those are the ones that we're seeing the silhouettes of and everything like that. If you objectively look through everything we learned about Shiki and pirate history, Shiki was set up to be the first emperor after Roger died. He had the biggest fleet, the strongest fleet. He himself was like top tier level or whatever. Prime Sengoku and Prime Garp together took him down. He would have defeated the Roger Pirates as established if a storm didn't save them, so on and so forth. Seems to be portrayed as number 3 of Rocks Pirates. Daddy Smurf, thanks for the 2. Garp stocks up after this chapter. Yeah, Garp looked pretty good. I think Garp is often slept up. Like, I sleep on Garp. People have asked before, like, Morj, out of Roger, Whitebeard, Garp, like, Roger, Whitebeard, Garp, Rocks, why do people tend to put Garp last? And I said, even in recent streams, it's just like, well, because people get tired of just saying every character is equal to every character, right? So, like, at a certain point, you want to make a call on, well, which character might be the lowest or whatever out of this group. So it's kind of like Garp kind of gets the short end of the stick for whatever. Because, like, we just spend more time focusing on and hyping up Whitebeard. Roger is Roger, and then Rocks is just that dude. So Garp kind of just falls by the wayside a little bit in the context of that set of 4 characters. But the more we see, the more it's looking like, yeah, maybe they're all fucking equal. Like, Roger, Whitebeard, Garp's all the same level. It's just, that's the thing with, like, power scaling or whatever. When you get to the top level, it's just, at a certain point, it's just not fun to be, it feels borderline weird to be like, okay, we've got, like, 5 characters that are all equal. Like, Rocks and Roger and Whitebeard, they're established to be equal. But then also Garp is in there, and you know what? Garp also is supposedly equal to all of them also. And now we're learning about this new dude, Rocks, and Rocks sounds like such a big deal. I guess fucking Rocks is also equal, so like the strongest 4 from that era, it's all straight tied. And then we're finding out about fucking Harold. Apparently that dude was fucking Pirate King tier 2, so it's like, okay, I guess fucking Harold is tied for, like, we got 5 people all equal at the very top. Like, most stories don't have, like, 5 characters all, like, as the ranked dead even, that important in the story, you know? Like, obviously you got Joy Boy and Emu that are probably even higher than that, but, like, in terms of modern-day characters that we know about, it feels like when there's that many characters contending for the top spot, it just feels boring to say they're all equal. So you have to make some calls and just be like, let's put Rocks number 1. Let's put Roger 1. Let's put fucking Whitebeard 1. It's just rare to hear somebody say, let's put Garp 1. I think we just get it emphasized at least. I put Harold pretty high too now. I think before I was hesitant because I was like, okay, Harold and Rocks clashed once. And that on its own doesn't mean that Harold is like, I was like, Harold was probably supposed to be Yonko level or something, but I was like, I don't think that means Harold's like equal to Rocks or something. But the story has progressed and it's been reiterated multiple times. Like, Rocks is like, Harold, if I had Harold on my side, we can defeat the world government. Like, Rocks views Harold basically as his equal, and Rocks is convinced that, like, if Harold ate that fruit, then we're taking down the world government. Like, just the way that Rocks seems to view Harold, it's not just like a dude that he happened to clash equally with once. It feels like a Roger Whitebeard type dynamic where they are meant to be basically the same level. I think Oda's played up that parallel quite a bit, just considering, I've talked about this in past streams, but like Roger, Whitebeard obviously portrayed as equals, but the difference is that Roger had these big grand dreams and wanted to turn the world upside down, and Whitebeard was like, huh? Okay, that sounds like a lot to me. I'm good, man. I'm just focused on my family and everything, right? Rox and Harold is the exact same dynamic where like Rox has these big crazy dreams, more aggressive than Rogers, but he's got these big crazy dreams that he's trying to tell Harold about, and Harold's like, I don't know about this shit, man. Like, I'm just gonna focus on taking care of Elbaf, you know? I do feel like Harold is portrayed as the Whitebeard to Rox's Roger, essentially. So I put Harold right there too at this point, man. Like, Rox is gassing him up so much, which means that Oda's basically gassing up Harold. Okay, continuing on. Goomba Boomba, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 34 months. Do you think this generation of pirates will ever reach the level of the old generation in terms of hype, power, status, etc., excluding the Strats? Excluding the Strats, so now I think that there's 3 characters from the current generation that... I think in the current generation, Kid, Law, no, bums. Like, this is a generation of bums. The ones that could have are Ace, who died. But Ace was established, like, countless characters made it clear, like, Ace had Pirate King potential, Roger, like, same potential as Roger, right? That's why Oda had to write him off so that Luffy could take that role, right? Luffy, if you count Loki as this generation, depends how you view the Giants' ages. Loki, Blackbeard, depending on how Blackbeard's storyline plays out, right? And Blackbeard should get to that level, right? Still don't know about the whole Rox possessing Blackbeard storyline or whatever, but like Luffy, Loki, Blackbeard, I think that's the set of characters from this generation. Previous generation, I think there's a solid possibility that Dragon is secretly at that level. I think there's a solid possibility that Shanks is secretly at that level. I think I have to mention Mihawk, otherwise people will be upset. I don't think it's ever been implied that Mihawk is secretly at that level. I think Mihawk himself basically is like said that he views Whitebeard above him, unless you've got like some crazy incorrect interpretation of the measuring the distance line from Mihawk. So yeah, I think that's what I got. But that's just possibilities, right? I'm not saying I think Shanks is on that level or not. I'm not saying I think Dragon's on that level. I think from the group of characters, I think they're the only characters that are possibly on that level, right? Like Oda might surprise us by revealing that they are, just because of the amount of hype and aura, that mystery that Oda gives them. But that's about it. I wouldn't be surprised if Shanks and Dragon are not at that level, if they're more like just Kaido Big Mom level, like same as Mihawk. Bill Clan says Shanks, same generation as Blackbeard, though. That's true. I guess I view generations a bit more by like when they actively try to come up. So Blackbeard was just chilling, I guess, because Blackbeard is considered part of the worst generation. Even though he's the same age as, you know, like Capone Beige is fucking, as far as I know, like Shanks' age and stuff, but he's considered part of this generation. It's complicated. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Did Oda succeed where Miura couldn't, figuring out how to overcome insurmountable villains like the Yonko, unlike Berserk's untouchable God Hand? That's very, very, very different types of stories. Because, one, I'm sure that Miura had plans of like where the story's supposed to go and eventually do that. And 2, in One Piece, the Yonko are always supposed to be like characters that are reachable through sheer... Like, One Piece is working with like a clear power system where it's like, yeah, you train your haki, you get your haki leveled up, you get your Conqueror's haki to a certain point, etc., and then you're strong enough to fight the Yonko. That's it, right? Like, it's like the Yonko are just very strong characters that happen to exist in the sense that they're at the top of One Piece's power system. Berserk, it's very different. It's literally supposed to feel like the gap between man and God. Like, Guts is literally trying to fight the heavens itself, right? Like, it's supposed to be totally different. Like, the God Hand is supposed to feel unreachable, unattainable. It's just an entirely different gap. Like, One Piece, it's more like, you know, trying to scale a very reasonable ladder, but it ultimately feels like a ladder where, like, Luffy's fighting, you know, like, first guys like Caesar, then you're moving up to guys like Doflamingo, then up to guys like Katakuri, and then you're going for the bosses themselves, the Yonko. It's supposed to feel like that. Everything's doable. It's just very difficult. Whereas In Berserk, it's supposed to feel like impossible. And we never got to the point in the story where we learned exactly how you bridge the gap to the impossible, but that was the grandeur of the conflict that had been set up. Very, very different. JP, thanks for the 20. So Rox and Herald, the unofficial pirate kings of their era, both tried to change the world in contrasting ways and both failed. It's Roger and Luffy's path that's maybe a balance of Rox and Herald that will succeed. I don't know. Because I don't think Roger and Luffy, like, they don't have, like, the thing that is different with Roger and Luffy is intentionality. At least with Luffy. Like, we don't have a clear, we know that they both have a dream that's unexplained, but they don't operate in terms of clear plans. They do what they want to do, which happens to help lots of people. But Herald, I don't think Herald wanted to change the world. He just wanted to make things a lot better for Elbaf. I think he did want to make the world better as well, but was frustrated by the world government. And then Rox wants to do it, like, obviously through violence and everything like that and conquest. Whereas Luffy and Roger, it's just them being themselves and pursuing their own, like, what they think is, what they want to do. Seems like it would be naturally beneficial to the world. Duck20, thanks for the 5. The vibe I'm getting is if the Rox Pirates stuck together in God Valley, they would have won. I don't know. Because God Valley, it's like, how do I say this? As strong as the Rox Pirates are, God Valley pitted them against the Roger Pirates all in their, like, at this point we know that Roger, Rayleigh, Gaban, right? Like, all of them are, like, heavy hitters, right? Like, Rayleigh and Gaban in their prime, I'm confident, Yonko level, right? And then you've got Garp, who was also probably at his prime once God Valley rolled around. Roger in his prime when God Valley rolled around. And then you got the Gods Knights. So, like, we still don't know exactly how strong Garling was in his prime or whatever, but the Gods Knights as a whole, we've seen today, like, a single Gods Knight fucks up half the Straw Hats. Half of a Yonko crew just went down to a single Gods Knight, right? They're going to be, like, all 9 Gods Knights at God Valley. So, and fucking Saturn was at God Valley. Like, throw Gorosei in there, too. So, yes, the Rox Pirates, if I were to guess, right, this is total spitballing or whatever, but if I were to guess, looking at the Rox Pirates right now, Rox, in his prime, Pirate King level, Whitebeard, pre-prime, still probably, like, it's established that he hit his prime 2 years after God Valley. So at God Valley, Whitebeard was probably, like, Yonko level, but not yet at, like, Pirate King level, right? I view there being a gap, like Whitebeard in his prime, same as Roger, I view as, like, a step above the Yonko. Same place I view Rox being at right now. So Whitebeard probably Yonko level, Shiki probably Yonko level. Maybe Big Mom was getting close to there. Kaido definitely wasn't. Silver Axe maybe close to Yonko level based on the hype relative to Shiki. Wang Ji, from what we know, a character who should be close to Yonko level, just not quite there. And then characters like, Gloriosa, strong. I'm sure Captain John, strong. But, like, we know that not every Rox Pirate is, like, a heavy hitter. Like, fucking, like, Bakin. We see how strong Stussy is today. It's strong, but she even admits that she couldn't beat someone like Lucci. So, you see what I'm saying? Like, the Rox Pirates, it's, like, the strongest singular crew ever. But if they're going up against, obviously, like, they would beat any of these groups individually. Like, they'd beat the Gods Knights individually. They'd beat, obviously, Garp and the Marines individually. They'd beat the Roger Pirates individually. But if you stack all of these things together, it's like Rox like Roger in his prime, Pirate King level. Garp in his prime, Pirate King level, right? Rayleigh, Gaban, I think in their prime were probably Yonko level. Figarlin, Garling, probably Yonko level in his prime, maybe. Let's say maybe. We maybe getting too speculative here. Like, and then you got all the Gods Knights. You got so many Marines. You got, like, it's just too much. And then you fucking throw in Saturn in there, Gorosei, Admiral-ish level, whatever. Like, it's just too many. It's arguable that maybe, like, it would have been a tie or something, if not for, like, group cohesion being so bad. But it's not like everybody that fought was on the same team in the first place. Like, the Rox Pirates at least started off as a singular squad. The Garp showed up to fucking fight Roger. The Gods Knights, like, and the Roger Pirates weren't friends either. Like, it's not like all of the people they fought against were on the same team either. So I don't know if that's the best argument for why they failed. I think they might have just been outmatched. Werb says Streusen was not on that level for sure. Yeah, it's not like every single Rocks pirate was just like a Yonko level figure. Like like the characters that we know became Yonko later on were not Yonko level at that point in time, except for probably Whitebeard, because Whitebeard has an even higher ceiling down the line. So that needs to be taken into account. Bane, thanks for the 2. Luffy and Hancock ship dead after this chapter. It was never alive. Colin, thanks for the 2. Oda killed the Strats for me. Rocks would be a better me. Rocks would be a better me, main character. Oh, Rocks would be a better main character? Nah, come on. Well, I think if we go back to the story focusing on the Straw Hats some more, as I feel like Elbaf is doing, you change your mind. But I know where you're coming from. Treble Leakum, thanks for the 2. Do you think Shiki will join Blackbeard? Low-key, I'm finally starting to believe that Shiki might be relevant to the story again. Finally starting to believe it's a possibility. He's just too cool. He's too cool. He clearly was a big deal on the Rocks Pirates. He commanded a lot of authority. He's the one that was basically like, Rocks, Kaido, you guys are going to stop fighting right now. He's been portrayed so far, it seems like the number 3 after Whitebeard. Yeah, and I reread Chapter 0. Shiki was a really, really fucking big deal back then. I think readers just didn't, we didn't know how to rate him properly, so we kind of underestimated him. Abraham, thanks for the 2. In hindsight, how strong is Fisher Tiger? I don't think Fisher Tiger is that strong. Because, it seems like he wouldn't be capable of beating, Vice Admiral level Kizaru. Maybe I might be misremembering how the interactions went or whatever, but I don't think, the fact that Fisher Tiger just got taken down by, some random Marines suggests that he was never that strong, you know? Kai A, thanks for the 2. What do you think about Tritoma being Luffy's mom? I don't put any stock in it until we get a bit more evidence. Also, it doesn't help that Tritoma died of love sickness. So it's if she died of love sickness, then that means it's unrequited love, right? So she didn't get whoever she was interested in. Meek, thanks for the 5. The OG Yonko are Big Mom, Kaido, Shanks, Whitebeard. All are ex-Rocks besides Shanks. If Shanks wasn't a Yonko, then Wang Zi would take his spot pre-time skip. So funnily enough, next Tuesday's video goes in depth into this quite a bit. So if you go back through One Piece history, Shiki would have been the 4th Yonko, if he had survived, or not survived, if he hadn't just done that whole crazy attack Marineford by myself mission, right? Shiki had this, he was ahead. If you piece together all of the history that we've been given, one, Oda actually highlights Shiki a lot every time he talks about the Rocks Pirates. He tends to show us the silhouettes of 4 characters consistently. When he talks about Rocks, you can check in 957, you can check in the Odin flashback. He always shows us the silhouettes of Kaido, Big Mom, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, and Shiki. He does that consistently. It's always Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, Shiki. Those are the silhouettes he always shows us because they're the biggest deal. And then if you look through basically what happened, the Whitebeard pirates were building their fleet. Kaido's trying to build his empire. Big Mom's trying to build his empire. Shiki built his empire the fastest. He was already there. If you go back to the Battle of Edwar, Shiki had the biggest fleet, the largest empire already assembled by the time of close to the end of Roger's era. So he was actually ahead of Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom. They took it was over the next decade or so that they got, timeline-wise, that they were able to build their empires. Shiki was already the strongest empire on the ocean at that point in time. He went up against the Roger Pirates in their prime. And just narration is very clear. Roger Pirates got away with a draw. They escaped with a draw only because a storm hit. It's established that the Roger Pirates were losing. Go reread the chapter. It's established that they would have lost if not for a storm that saved them. So, the Pirate King Gold Roger could have just been fucking wiped out by, Golden Lion Shiki, which would make him, ahead of everybody fucking else, right? But even if, you ignore that situation, right, because that's just an if situation, Roger dies. We know that in the following decade, that's when, Whitebeard establishes himself, Big Mom establishes herself as an emperor, Kaido establishes himself as an emperor, and then finally Shanks establishes himself as an emperor, right? Shiki was already there. Shiki already had the emperor-sized fleet, the strongest crew. And it seems based on, Prime Garp and Prime Sengoku together having to take him down. He was, and like just his status on the Rocks Pirates, he was likely Yonko strength himself. He was never stronger than Whitebeard or anything like that, but like as soon as Roger goes out and like the era of the Emperor starts and everyone's like all the biggest pirates are like moving in to start to stake their claim as, you know, the biggest pirate on the sea, Shiki would have had the biggest piece of the pie to start with. So I think that's just really interesting. It would have been Shiki, then probably Whitebeard catches up with his fleet next, then maybe Big Mom, Kaido. Big Mom's a complicated situation because she has to wait for her kids to fucking all grow up. Big Mom, Kaido seemed to be pretty far behind as of Odin's flashback and everything like that, but, you know, he got there. And then Shanks would have had to, I guess he would have had to become the 5th Emperor or some shit. Wang Ji, I don't think would have ever become a Yonko, because if he was meant to be an emperor, he would have been an emperor. Does that make sense? Like, he just controlled Pirate Island. Because there's not like a predetermined number, like, oh, there's always supposed to be 4 emperors. It's just like, who are the strongest pirates that can stake claim to, like, we rule the New World? Whitebeard did it, then Big Mom, then Kaido. If Wang Ji was that big, he would have just been called an emperor, if that makes sense. Oh, I skipped New X7 second super? Oh, shit, I'm sorry, New X7. Hold on. I got you. Give me a second. My bad, man. It said, can we talk about how Ida is so great? What's the other one? Are you sure I skipped it? Are you sure? I think I don't see anything else from you, man. Oh, no, Kaido's right. Today's kids are just playing pirates. Ah, you're right. Yeah, I found it now. I agree with you. They're just playing pirates. I agree. Like, the level is so fucking far off. The supernova are just generally a joke compared to the pirates of the Rocks days. Like, it's actually hilarious. Like, it makes Kaido sound like a fucking boomer, but in this case, it's right. It's like, Kaido's this dude that grew up with, like, fucking World War II vets, and he's looking at fucking Gen Z TikTok Zoomers coming up, doing their little TikTok Minecraft dances and stuff, and he's like, the world was different back in my day. Yeah, Kaido just looks at them and he's just like, these are just a bunch of TikTok kids. These are just a bunch of little Zoomers. With they all these little supernova coming up. They all have like, none of them have Conqueror's Haki except for fucking Luffy and Kid, who were told as Conqueror's Haki and it's never showed it. None of them have Conqueror's Haki because they all have anxiety and depression and ADHD. They've all got their little things. That's how Kaido views the new generation. Emperor Beast Kaido, thanks for the 10. Blackbeard holds a public execution for Garp in an attempt to embarrass the Navy, but this leads to Garp inspiring the youth of the Navy, just like Whitebeard and Roger did in their deaths, but for the Marines. That would be so fucking sick. If that is like one of the big impetuses for change for like the next generation of the Navy, because we know they got to fix their ways. You know, we know that like their stuff is completely fucked, especially with the Kaido at the helm. So I think that that's a really, really good idea. It's a really good idea. Love that idea. Monte, thanks for the 10. Do you think we'll get to see that previous clash between Rocks and Roger that Roger mentioned when he showed up at God Valley? Maybe the focus on Roger this chapter is meant to set up for that too. I think that that's important to the story because it sounds like that's like even Kaido references something happening there between him and Roger. So it's important, and it seems like God Valley is sort of payback for Roger. And I really want to see Rocks and Roger interact. That's very important. Hunter, thanks for the 2. I believe one of the Rocks crew is a traitor. So somebody mentioned that Silver Axe might be a traitor because, like, X-Drake parallels and stuff. Brim, thanks for the 2. Have you read any manhwa since solo leveling? No, I still need to read Omniscient Reader. That's because my girlfriend bought me that, and that's somewhere on the bookshelf right now. So I still got to read that. Dare Boppler, thanks for the 2. Blackbeard kills Devon so no one can steal Seraphim. I've thought about that because I think that that's very, very possible that Blackbeard might tell Devon to give one final order to the Seraphim and then just off her. Because people were pointing out that like Robin could be the one to fight S Crocodile because Vegapunk established that he couldn't replicate Logias. And I also personally subscribe to the theory that Crocodile is originally a woman. So I think once that Seraphim grows up, we'll see a female version of Crocodile. And Oda likes his woman versus woman fights, so I think we could get Robin versus female S Croc or whatever. And yeah, and as long as S Croc doesn't have the Sand Logia, it's a good matchup. The tricky thing, so people were asking different questions like, wait, Morge, how would like some of the Straw Hats defeat Seraphim? Like, how would Jinbei defeat a Seraphim? How would Robin defeat a Seraphim? I think that a lot of the Straw Hats are going to have to get creative, and I think that's part of the fun of the fight. So, for example, Jinbei defeating his version, S Shark, I personally believe will involve Jinbei having to manipulate the ocean or seawater in some way, because that's the one way that he'd be able to counter him. Does that make sense? Like, I think Brook defeating S Gecko will involve something related to soul powers counteracting shadow powers that may allow Brook to find a way to win without actually being able to damage a Seraphim necessarily, just through hockey. LSSB, thanks for the 10. The way Silver Axe grew between panels reminded me of Uruj. Do you think he was the prior holder of the fruit, and do you think it might suggest Uruj might come into the main story soon? I've seen people talk about that seems like an example of Uruj's fruit. It shows that Oda still remembers Uruj, and I think the longer Oda holds Uruj off, so the more it suggests to me that Oda does have an important role for Uruj, because from what we've seen, the supernova that Oda saves, like, has been saving and kind of keeping separate, like Bonnie, turned out to be the biggest deal that he has the most elaborate stories for. And then the supernova that, like, seemed important early on, like Hawkins and X-Drake and Apu, they were just thrust into the story early because, like, Oda's getting rid of them. You know? I do think that Silver Axe might have Uruj's fruit. It does look like that. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. Do you think Toritoma could be Luffy's mom? So can people tell me why do we think that? Why is that a thing? I think Oda even said in an SBS that, like, it's an SBS. So, like, if this is a lie, then it kind of... I personally am of the opinion that Oda just should never lie in SBSs, because, like, as soon as you do that once, then it basically means that, like, we can never trust SBSs again. I mean, like, Oda once said that Luffy's never going to defeat Kaido just because his punch is so strong, and Luffy did defeat Kaido with a punch that was so strong. His strongest punch ever. But I think that's the closest I can think of Oda lying in an SBS. That one is like wiggle room, because maybe in Oda's mind, open to interpretation, Luffy didn't just beat Kaido because his punch is so strong, right? But this would be a straight up lie if Oda says that the Kuja women only give birth to males, or sorry, only give birth to females, and then it's revealed that a Kuja woman gave birth to Luffy. Then it's just like, if he lied about that, then we can never trust SBSs again. Maybe that's me being overdramatic, but it might be me being overdramatic, but it essentially would mean that, like, anything that readers take as, like, word of God that came from an SBS, now we can argue against, because it's like, look, Oda said this shit about, like, I don't know, like, look, Oda said this shit about, like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, what's a popular SBS thing that would now be in jeopardy or whatever? I don't know. Oda said this thing about fucking Shanks versus Mihawk in an SBS, and it's like, see, Oda confirmed that that's the case, and then they'll be like, no. What Oda says in SBSs doesn't really count, because he also told us this shit, and that turned out to be a lie, you know? Like, as soon as you kind of break the idea that, like, anything in an SBS is definitely true, it just complicates using an SBS for an argument in the future. Oh, that was in the main story. That was in the main story, not in the SBS. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry then. Okay, so it's not in SBS? Interesting. Ebrahim says Oda might just change his mind on stuff, like who Luffy's mom is. Wouldn't he have planned that from way earlier in the story, before the Kuja pirates were introduced into the story? It wasn't an SBS. It wasn't an SBS. It was the narrator and Amazon Lily? Okay, my bad. Well, then the narrator. That's even worse, because then we can't trust the narrator at all, right? I think I'd have to go back and read it. But I guess my question is, why do people believe it was Toritoma? Because, if anything, wouldn't it make less sense it being Toritoma? Because she died of love sickness, right? So it's unrequited love suggests that she didn't get with whoever she was trying to get with, right? So why do people believe it was Toritoma? Maybe it's Toritoma. I'm not trying to say it's like it's not Toritoma. It could be the answer, because at this point we're just searching. Like, all of us readers are just searching for, like, who is Luffy's mom? Like, who's Luffy's mom? We're all just trying to figure that out. If it's fucking Toritoma, it like any prominent female character that pops up that seems vaguely like resembling Luffy, like, people are gonna jump on that, and it'll be a viable option because there's so few viable options. I'm not saying it's not Toritoma, but, like, you know. Drink water, Pegdy's leg. Thanks for the 2. Disappointed to not see Bogard in the background. I just don't think Bogard's a big deal. I just don't think he's ever meant to be a big deal. Tesseract says the narrator said Kaido's unbeatable in 1v1. You, my friend, must have a defective copy of One Piece, because the narrator never said that. It is actually insane that there's, to date, this many people that claim the narrator said that Kaido's unbeatable in 1v1. Oda very little. It's like downright straight up, like, ignorant reading comprehension. The narrator says that people say Kaido is who you would bet on in a 1v1. People, as in this is general public perception. That's it. People in the One Piece world also believe that Robin destroyed a Buster Call at 8 years old and that she's a demon child. What? The irony of arguing that the narrator said that people say Kaido should be bet on in a 1v1 is that nowadays, repeatedly, we've been shown in the story that apparently the people of the One Piece world now say that Luffy beat Kaido in a 1v1. That's what people say now. Like Kizaru was saying. Like Kizaru, a Navy admiral who's very informed about the situation, he's saying, Luffy, heard that you're the man that took care of Kaido. Scopper Gaban, he says, Luffy, I heard you beat Kaido. At this point, people say Luffy beat Kaido 1v1. Does that give you, like, I don't know how fucking dumb you have to be at this point to go with people say in the One Piece world, because the whole idea is that the One Piece world is chock full of rumors that are incorrect and misconceptions. That's the entire fucking point. The people also say that the world government is good and would never fucking commit, like, needless genocide on innocent islands. People say that the people of Ohara were demonic scholars. People say Gold Roger was pure evil and like a damn bastard. How fucking dumb do you have to be to read Kaido's text box and be like, people say in a 1v1 bet on Kaido, and then interpret that as, oh, the narrator says bet on Kaido in a 1v1, or the narrator says Kaido beats anyone in a 1v1. It's like the total fucking opposite. The narrator's telling us this is a rumor of what people in the One Piece world, like the dumbass public of the One Piece world, would bet on. This is a fucking rumor. Like, the narrator is just telling us the rumors that people have at this point in time. Because the world has a gap in power at the top of the pirate hierarchy post Whitebeard's death, right? When Whitebeard was alive, the general consensus was Whitebeard's number one. Whitebeard left, dead, gone. So now we're in this, like, vacancy. So people don't know who's top dog on the seas. People are saying that Kaido. I would bet on Kaido at this point, right? What happens? Kaido's first big 1v1, what happens? Stalemate with fucking Big Mom. Guess everyone who put all of their fucking chips down on Kaido in a 1v1 lost a lot of money that day. It's fucking hyped up as the world's strongest creature, ties with Big Mom. That's the best that we can do. Patrick Hawkins, thanks for the 5. It's crazy to think that Rox had potentially 8 crewmates with Conqueror's Haki, including Loki, Herald, and 2 Empresses. Could have had that. Yeah, I mean, 2 Empresses? Isn't it just Gloriosa? But I mean, at the very least, we know, obviously, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, My guess is Shiki, just based on portrayal. I don't think you like charge Marineford solo and take on like Prime Garp and Sengoku if you don't have Conqueror's Haki. So I'd say at least Shiki, potentially Gloriosa, Loki, yeah, obviously if he joined. Yeah. Conquer D Haki, thanks for the 5. I always view Mihawk Whitebeard line as this is who they say is the strongest in the world, but now see for myself. I agree. But Mihawk refers to a gap, and he says the gap doesn't seem that big. But he also doesn't like put himself above Whitebeard. He's just saying that he doesn't think he's that far off from Whitebeard, right? Like, there's not that many ways that you can interpret that. He's just saying, I don't think the gap is all that big, but he still believes or still seems to think that there is a gap. He just thinks that, like, maybe it's like right this, like this or something. Maybe Mihawk is even like, maybe I'm equal to Whitebeard at this point, right? But Mihawk still considers Whitebeard to be above him, assumedly if Whitebeard was like at his best. So like Mihawk's observing Whitebeard as he is right now, he's like, I don't think the gap is that big. It goes back to straight up like Mihawk's initial, like, this isn't fucking complicated. This goes back to Mihawk's initial scene where he tells Zoro that like most swordsmen are able to look at me and understand that they're not on my level, right? That's who Mihawk is. That's how the character's fucking introduced to us, right? Mihawk seeing Whitebeard, old, frail, on his fucking deathbed, life support stuff, Whitebeard, and it's like, I don't think the gap is that big at this point. In fact, maybe Mihawk doesn't, like, if you really want to get speculative, maybe Mihawk doesn't think there's a gap at all, although that's not what his line says. It's not what he's explicitly saying, but maybe in his head, if you want a headcanon, maybe Mihawk thinks, like, I might be equal to Whitebeard at this point. But he's still, at least verbally, which is all we can go off of, he still is basically thinking that there is a gap, as far as we can tell. Continuing on. Mihawk D. Goat. Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 23 months. Whitebeard called Shanks and Mihawk's duels legendary. Oda said Mihawk and Shanks clashed like Whitebeard and Roger. Old gen greater than new gen doesn't make sense narratively. Why doesn't it make sense narratively? All that matters is like, why doesn't that make sense narratively? There's so many fucking stories where like the ancient characters, the older generation is way stronger than the newer character. That's like very, very fucking common. The only thing that matters narratively is that Luffy surpasses the previous generations, but if anything, like One Piece repeatedly like has characters fucking reiterate over and over that the level of the sea was higher in the past. You know, like, I mean, Kaido, as you said, Little Pirate Games. Bane, thanks for the 2. Hypothetically, can Rox's crew save Ace at Marineford? Rox's crew would wreck Marineford. Like, it would be a fucking joke. Like, the world government shits itself at the thought of 2 Yonko crews uniting. Now, that doesn't mean that the world government would lose to 2 Yonko crews, but the world government, with the lineup it had at Marineford, it's still fucking tight, right? Wait, let's pause this. Can Rock's crew save Ace at Marineford? That's an easy yes, because that's like the fucking Whitebeard pirates with like ancient, like weakened Whitebeard. They basically saved Ace at Marineford. Ace turned around and killed himself. So that's a very different question. Like, the bar for saving Ace at Marineford, like just the rescue mission, that's actually very, very low. If the Whitebeard pirates had like a bit more manpower, like throw one more Yonko crew in there, that's done. If the question is, could the Rocks pirates just straight up win the war? Like, wipe out the Marines and everything there? I think that, yeah, definitely. Like, Rocks alone is on a totally different level from every other character at Marineford, right? And then you look at his fucking squad, and you've got, like, Whitebeard at that, like, Whitebeard is probably stronger, because, like, Marineford Whitebeard was just straight up, like, probably the weakest version of Whitebeard. Probably couldn't use Conqueror's Haki or, like, he couldn't use Conqueror's Haki or anything, right? So the Whitebeard that'd be rolling up to Marineford as, like, the number 2 guy is stronger than the dude that they all believed could destroy the world at Marineford, right? And then you got fucking Shiki the Golden Lion that previously took Prime Garp and Sengoku to defeat 2v1, right? I'm definitely taking Shiki over like fucking old Garp or old Sengoku, you know? And then you just got so many fucking characters. Like Big Mom, fucking young Kaido was like a huge deal even. Silver Axe, comparable to Shiki. Wang Ji ruled over Pirate Island. It took like a full fucking alliance between Blackbeard, Law, and Kobe to take down Wang Ji. Blue Stints, thanks for joining the Pirate King tier. Welcome. Make sure to get your Pirate King podcast submissions in. The submissions are now open. Any question that you like, I'll answer it very in depth in the Pirate King podcast. And make sure to check out past Pirate King podcasts that you now have access to. Okay, I'm going to have to start wrapping up stream right around here, so let me catch up the supers. Joseph eBay, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 11 months. My guy, the Rock/Herald best friend section of the stream is elite commentary. The city needs Morge Unleashed back. Hashtag never forget. Thanks, man. I don't think we're ever getting back to Morge Unleashed, but I appreciate the support for it. We might at some point. We might. I don't want to say never. Blaze, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 28 months. This just supports the theory that Crocodile is Luffy's mom. I mean, if it's that versus, like, Toritoma or whatever, those are the two best options we got. Let's get the stream likes up to 300 real quick because we're almost there. Prophet Glutton, thanks for the 5. If the highest tier characters use Advanced Conqueror's Haki, then wouldn't a fight between Shanks and Mihawk just be the two swords never coming into contact? What's the point? I don't know. I straight up don't know. I don't know. I don't want to get into all that. It gets into murky territory. I don't want to talk about Shanks versus Mihawk here. Drinkwater, Pegdy's leg, thanks for the 5. Unless Tritoma was raised by the Kuja pirates, but my stock still goes to Luffy's mom as a slave in Marishua. Yeah, I hope Luffy's mom is something, like, narratively significant and not just, like, sexiest woman, like... That's basically what each Kuja pirate is, right? Sexiest woman in the world of each generation, right? Like, it's basically the Miss Universe of One Piece, right? It's like, yeah, Luffy's mom was just, like, the hottest woman on the planet. That's basically her story. It's like, what? Then why does Luffy look like such a fucking goofy-ass dude? Yeah, I just hope it's something a bit more narratively meaningful. Tritoma's just fucking random, you know? To me. Maybe there's more to her story, you know? I'm not writing it off. It's just like... Why Tritoma? Django, thanks to the 2. If it's a 1v1, always bet on Kaido. Yeah, that's what people say. That's what people say. That's what said. Oh my god. That's the rumor. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. Am I fucking losing my mind? People say in a 1v1, in a one-on-one fight, always bet on Kaido. Is that the narrator saying that? Or is that people saying that? Jesus Christ. Do you think Kaido beats Imu? Do you think the narrator is telling us that Kaido beats Imu? That we should bet on Kaido versus Imu? Or is the narrator just telling us what people fucking say? This is actually insane. Because, like, Kaido's the only character where it's like, the story can word for word tell us one thing, but readers instead want to gas up Kaido, so they instead, like, remove all of the qualifiers and are just like, in a 1v1 fight, always bet on Kaido. It's like, yeah, that's, the narrator literally says, this is the current reputation that he has. This is his reputation. This is all, like, let me ask you this. If that is the case, why didn't he beat Big Mom? So the bet immediately was proven false. Because, again, Kaido starts fighting Big Mom. They both say it's a fight to the death. Right off the bat, it's like, okay, I'm putting my money on Kaido, right? Because the narrator says, put my money on Kaido. Oh, it turns out I just lost all my fucking money because it was a fucking tie. Narrator never fucking says in a 1v1 always bet on Kaido. Narrator tells us people say this is the case. People believe this right now. This is believed. People also believe Luffy beats Kaido 1v1 right now. That's literally what the people of the One Piece world believe. It's been established multiple times. Everyone seems to fucking think Luffy beat Kaido 1v1. If the narrator were to drop a text box right now, it would say, people say in a 1v1, always bet on Luffy. Does that mean Luffy beats everyone in the world? What the fuck? Django, thanks for the 5. Do you think there's a copper member of the Rocks Pirates? Gold Line, Silver Axe, Copper, someone mirroring Roger's crew somewhat. I think once you're getting down to Copper, it's just kind of silly. Because it's like, for Roger's crew, it's similar. It's like Gold Roger, Silver's Rayleigh, Copper Gaban. For some reason, it's like, if that same thing is just like repeated again for like a whole different set of pirates, I'm just like, I don't know. But maybe it's a thing. I don't know. African Surf, thanks for the 5. What's up, more? Do you think Garling is Pirate King level during God Valley or now is a Gorosei? I don't think so. I feel like Garling was probably like Yonko level or something at God Valley. I don't want to like jump the boat and be like, well, now that he's got Gorosei powers and stuff, maybe now he's like Pirate King level. Jump the shark, whatever. I'm just gonna assume Yonko level. That's what I'll leave it at. Pasty Cash, thanks for the 2. What's good, Morge? I think I'm a bit late. What have I missed? Nothing, man. Although stream is wrapping up right about now. But we had a really, really fucking good chapter here. Uchek, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 34 months, man. Random, probably wrong prediction. This Silver Axe guy and Shiki are about to have the fight that takes his legs. No, so unfortunately Shiki cut off his own legs to escape from Impel Down. But, like, I mean, it would be cool to see a fight between them. That'd be really cool. All right. All right, everybody. We are going to call stream here, just because I do got to do stuff now. But yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you all for tuning in. Yeah, this was a fucking sick chapter. I think next week is break week, but I also heard that we might get leaks early or something like that, so we just got to wait and see. And yeah, okay, I got one more thing. Emperor Beast Kaido, thanks for the 5. I may be biased, but I think Kaido is on that level of the old gen. His showing on Onigashima was all I needed. It does that take doesn't make any sense because at Onigashima he only fought like the rookie characters of the newer generation. Like, I just don't get how people scale Kaido at all to old gen stuff when repeatedly throughout the story it's established that like Roger, Whitebeard were above the current characters, right? Prime Whitebeard above the other Yonko, right? That's established a million times over. And then Kaido at Onigashima, like, it seems strong at the time because he's fighting characters that are very weak in the grand scheme of things, but seem important to us at that point in time. Does that make sense? Like, in the grand scheme of things, like Kid, Law Killer, like pre-Konkurazaki Zoro, pre-Konkurazaki Luffy, they're fucking ants. Like, they're nothing. It has no meaning that Kaido is able to fight against them, and he also had another fucking Yonko on his side in that fight. He literally had another Yonko on his team. Like, it's honestly kind of bizarre to me, because, like, nobody ever gives Big Mom credit for taking no damage during the rooftop fight, whereas Kaido did take a lot of damage. And people act like Kaido had to, like, go through every character all at the same time. No, they generally took turns, and all of them are fucking weak. Like, in the grand scheme of things, they're so far off from the level of the old gen. The one time that Kaido actually fought somebody that is also notably strong was Big Mom, and it was a tie. So do you think, like, how can you believe that Kaido is at the level of, like, how can you believe that Kaido is equal to Roger, Whitebeard, Rocks and stuff when Kaido ties with Big Mom? Do you also believe that Big Mom is equal to Rocks, Roger, Whitebeard and everything? And the thing about Kaido versus Big Mom is that it's not like it was a one-off clash or anything like that. It was a full-on fight. Like, they fought for longer than Luffy fought Katakuri. Dead even. Stalemate. Like, the only other thing that we have to go off with Kaido is, like, he tried to intercept Whitebeard at Marine Ford, and then he was stopped by the red-haired pirates. And it's like, okay, well, he was stopped by the red-haired pirates. People argue that, well, Kaido didn't have his full crew with him and stuff. So it's like, okay, so that's not a feat against Kaido, but it doesn't establish anything for Kaido. And then the other notable fight Kaido had against someone strong from the older generation was Oden, which Kaido was set to lose if not for cheating. So there's nothing really, like, Kaido's showings at Onigashima show that if anything, it shows the new generation is weak. It doesn't show anything about the old, like, about Kaido scaling to the old generation. There's nothing Kaido's ever done that scales him to that group. Okay, I'm about to wrap stream. Baby, I'm about to wrap stream. Give me a second. Emperor Beast Kaido, thanks for the 2. He scales down to his competitors, though. So then how are those feats? Like, what are the feats then? Like, because you can't, like, you can only argue it one way. Like, you can either argue that, like, it's really impressive that he fought all those characters at Onigashima, or you're making an excuse, which is like, well, he could have done better at Onigashima, but he scaled down to his competitors. So, like, what's the thing that suggests that he's old gen level? Abraham says, Morge, but Kaido said Luffy was the first guy in forever to go toe-to-toe with him. Yeah, but we already saw that Big Mom literally did go toe-to-toe with him. And Kaido said that he and Big Mom were trying to kill each other. So, like, what's the... Like, one statement doesn't cancel out the other. He said he was trying to kill Big Mom in her fight, and it turned out to be a draw, and he couldn't kill her. He says that Luffy's the first guy to go toe-to-toe with him forever, but literally a day ago, he was fighting Big Mom, and she was going toe-to-toe with him, right? Kaido's claims don't invalidate what actually was shown on screen. Like, if, for example... Luffy fought, like, let's say Luffy fought Aokiji and lost to Aokiji, and Luffy's like, Aokiji's the first guy to defeat me ever, at at Long Ring Longland. That doesn't mean Aokiji's the first guy to ever defeat Luffy. We literally saw Luffy lose to Crocodile a couple arcs ago, right? Like, Kaido's saying Luffy's the first person to be able to fight toe-to-toe with me in so long doesn't change the literal fact that Big Mom fought toe-to-toe with him 2 days ago. That happened. That's not like... I don't even understand the story that, like... What even is that argument? It's like... So just because Kaido says it means that this scene never happened? What does that mean? Kaido was also drunk off his rocker when he said that to Luffy. So maybe we could take that into consideration a little bit. Prophet says, I don't think they were. But that's just fucking picking and choosing. Because if you're saying you don't believe... So you're saying that when Kaido tells Luffy, you're the first person to go toe-to-toe with me, that we just take that as a statement of fact. When Kaido says, I'm trying to kill you, Big Mom, we just take that as like a false statement from him. That's literally just picking and choosing which one of Kaido's claims you want to be true to further your agenda. We already saw Kaido and Big Mom are fucking fighting serious. Like, they're using Conqueror's Haki and everything like that. Like, they're fucking furious at each other. The Marines even state that, like, Kaido and Big Mom have been, like, cats and dogs towards each other for, like, the last decades. Like, they've had a long, heated rivalry. Why would they be holding back? This is kind of crazy. Mariana says, you're talking in circles, mate. I'm literally just saying what happened in the story, right? What happened in the story, Kaido and Big Mom tied. Like, that's done. There's no talking in circles. Like, that's it. People are trying to spin it as like, but Kaido said no one had gone toe-to-toe with him. She just did. That's like a fact. That happens in the narrative. We have the panels. We have the scenes. Kaido saying this doesn't invalidate what happened. And if you want to say, well, Kaido said this to Luffy, which means he wasn't trying against Big Mom. Kaido also said he was trying to kill Big Mom. You can't just pick and choose which one of Kaido's statements to take as fact, right? Kaido said he's trying to kill Big Mom, means he's trying to kill Big Mom. You can't just be like, no, that statement was false. Only the one he said to Luffy is true. We know what we know. We know they fought equally. We know it was a dead even draw. That's what happened. Which means in a 1v1, Kaido doesn't just automatically win. He can't even beat Big Mom in a 1v1. Like, that's narrative... Like, I don't even, like, the Kaido bias is so fucking insane, because all he does is beat a bunch of rookies on the rooftop with help from Big Mom, right? Ultimately loses, by the way. He only really does well against the group before any of them have Conqueror's Haki, so he beats a bunch of Conqueror's Haki-less characters for a while with help from another Yonko, which, as we saw from Shanks, is not that impressive, right? That's actually very easy to do. Beats up on them with the help of another Yonko, eventually loses to Luffy after Luffy gets his power-ups, right? His one feat that's noteworthy against another character who's on his level is Big Mom, which is a draw. And no matter how you spin it, it is factually, canonically, in story a draw. And Kaido says he's trying to kill her, right? That's literally what happened. Kaido says he's trying to kill her. You can't say that his statement to Luffy is just true, but his statement about Big Mom is false just because you feel like it. That doesn't make any fucking sense. That purely comes from character bias. All right, are we good? Is there any other counter arguments? Kaido, big fish in small pond? Exactly. Any other counter arguments? Engineer says equivalent to a spar? No, because in sparring, characters aren't trying to kill each other. Milkman says he did a draw with Big Mom in base, except Big Mom was also in base. Big Mom didn't use her Devil Fruit, and she didn't use the ability to eat her own lifespan, as we saw against Kid and Law, to amp her physical abilities. So they're both in base both using the same restrictions. Any other points? Any other points? All right. I think we ended that discussion there. A good point to close things on. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.